Myostatin-related muscle hypertrophy, super strength. If you've ever wanted the physical strength of Superman or the Incredible Hulk without ever having to set foot in a gym, this is the genetic mutation you'd be wishing for. Myostatin-related muscle hypertrophy is an incredibly rare genetic condition characterized by significantly reduced body fat and an abnormal, massive increase in skeletal muscle size. Essentially, this disease gives affected people over twice the usual muscle mass of the average human being, resulting in literal super strength. It's caused by a mutation of the MSTN gene. In a normal human body, this gene produces myostatin, a protein responsible for limiting muscle growth, so our bodies don't consume too much energy. But in people with this disease, the gene doesn't work properly, meaning their muscles just keep growing. A famous example is Liam Hoekstra, who has been absolutely jacked since he was an infant. Liam could do a perfect pull-up at just 8 months old, rocked a shredded six-pack at 3 years old, and could effortlessly lift 3-kilogram dumbbells with his arms fully extended at that same age. Unlike many conditions on this list, this is one of the only genetic anomalies known to medical science that currently presents virtually no severe medical complications. Congenital insensitivity to pain, invulnerability. Imagine being able to walk through fire, step on glass, or take a punch from a professional boxer without feeling a single ounce of physical agony. An estimated 1 in every 25,000 people suffers from congenital insensitivity to pain, a genetic condition that completely shuts off the body's pain signaling pathways. Patients with this condition have a mutation in the SCN9A gene, which is entirely responsible for the development of pain-sensing nerve cells. People born with it literally cannot know or understand what physical pain feels like, even though they still retain the ability to feel light touches, temperature, and emotional pain. While being practically invulnerable sounds like a dream, the reality is a nightmare. Pain is one of the most important evolutionary survival tools the human body has. It tells us when to pull our hand away from a hot stove, or when to stop running on a fractured ankle. Because they lack this warning system, people with this condition usually die in their childhood as they severely injure themselves, bite off their own tongues, or scratch their eyes out without even knowing it. Interestingly, there is a small village in Sweden called Vittangi, which has a wildly out-of-the-ordinary amount of people suffering from a variant of this disease. Hyperthymestic Syndrome, supermemory. This condition, also known as highly superior autobiographical memory, HSAM, essentially gives a person a brain with a limitless hard drive. Hyperthymestic syndrome enables people to remember massive amounts of relatively random, hyperspecific information about their own lives, basically giving them superhuman memory. However, there is a massive catch. They cannot choose what they remember. A person with HSAM can flawlessly tell you exactly what the weather was like, what they ate for breakfast, and what shirt they were wearing on a random Tuesday 14 years ago. But they might completely forget what they studied for a math test the very next day. In fact, many experts note that hyperthymestic individuals often appear to have poorer than average memories when they actively try to memorize something like a script or a textbook. They describe their memories as uncontrollable, non-stop mental associations. If they see a specific date on a calendar, they instantly see a vivid, movie-like depiction of that day in their heads without any conscious effort. Unfortunately, this disease can be incredibly isolating. It makes it extremely difficult to sustain long-term relationships, as they can never naturally forget and forgive past arguments. Furthermore, they are entirely unable to let go of traumatic memories, reliving the worst days of their lives with fresh, vivid clarity forever. Fortunately, it is extraordinarily rare, with fewer than 100 people in the world having been diagnosed with it. LRP5 gene mutation, indestructible bones. Having unbreakable bones sounds like the origin story of a comic book hero, but it is a very real medical anomaly, also known as osteosclerosis, or the unbreakable bone mutation. This incredibly rare condition gives people bones that are super dense and virtually indestructible. It is caused by a specific mutation in the LRP5 gene, which regulates bone mineral density. While normal humans experience bone loss as they age, people with this mutation have skeletons that are incredibly thick. Sufferers of this condition have reportedly walked away from catastrophic high-speed car crashes without a single fracture, and their bones are so incredibly hard that they have been known to break solid wooden baseball bats upon impact. In one famous medical case, doctors tried to perform a hip replacement on a patient with an LRP5 mutation, but they physically couldn't complete the surgery because the surgeon's specialized medical drills couldn't even pierce the patient's bone. However, this superpower has serious drawbacks. Having bones this dense makes a person extraordinarily heavy, meaning many people with this mutation simply cannot swim and will sink like a stone in water. Additionally, the excessive bone growth can sometimes compress cranial nerves in the skull, leading to severe headaches and even hearing loss. Tetrachromacy, supervision. If you try to close your eyes and imagine a completely new color that you've never seen before, you won't be able to do it. Your brain will just glitch. But people with tetrachromacy don't have to imagine new colors, because they can actually see millions of them. The average human eye contains 3 types of cone cells, red, green, and blue, which allow us to see a standard spectrum of about 1 million distinct colors. While some animals, like certain birds, reptiles, and fish, naturally have 4 cones, humans are not supposed to. However, a tiny percentage of the human population, almost exclusively women, possess a genetic mutation that gives them a 4th, fully functioning cone cell. This means that they can perceive wavelengths of light far beyond those of typical human vision. To a tetrachromat, a green leaf isn't just green. They can see subtle hues of magenta, gold, and vibrant violet woven into the edges of it that are completely invisible to the rest of us. They can effortlessly distinguish between shades of color that look absolutely identical to a normal human. It is so rare that for decades, scientists didn't even believe human tetrachromacy existed, until modern genetic testing finally proved that these individuals are truly seeing a hidden, ultra-vibrant version of our world. Urbach-Wiethe Disease. Total fearlessness. Fear is the most primal emotion we have, designed to keep us alive in dangerous situations. But what if you physically could not be scared? Urbach-Wiethe disease is an extraordinarily rare genetic disorder that can lead to the complete destruction of the brain's amygdala, the almond-shaped cluster of neurons responsible for processing fear. Those who suffer from this specific neurological side effect of the disease become completely immune to fear, effectively turning them into real-life daredevils. The most famous case of this is a woman known in medical literature only as Patient SM. Scientists have tried everything to scare her. They took her to heavily haunted houses, showed her the most terrifying horror movies ever made, and handed her live, massive tarantulas and venomous snakes. Her heart rate never increased, and she never felt a drop of anxiety. In her everyday life, she was once held up at knife point in a dark alley, and instead of panicking, she calmly told the mugger to go ahead and cut her, which unnerved the attacker so badly that he just ran away. But just like a lack of pain, a lack of fear is incredibly dangerous. Without a natural sense of danger, people with this condition often walk directly into highly threatening situations without a second thought, drastically reducing their life expectancy. Savant Syndrome, superintelligence. Often compared to having a biological supercomputer in your head, Savant syndrome is a rare condition wherein a person with significant mental disabilities demonstrates profound and prodigious capacities or abilities far in excess of what would be considered normal. This disorder, which is frequently paired with autism spectrum disorder or severe brain injuries, makes the patient extraordinarily talented at a specific task. These abilities usually revolve around rapid mathematical calculations, stunning artistic feats, or cartography. One of the most famous examples is Stephen Wiltshire, an autistic man diagnosed with Savant syndrome. After taking a single 45-minute helicopter ride over London, Wiltshire was able to sit down and draw a stunningly flawless, hyper-accurate map of the entire city from memory, right down to the exact number of windows on specific skyscrapers. Another famous savant, Daniel Tammet, can perform massive mathematical calculations in his head in fractions of a second, and once recited pi from memory to 22,514 decimal places. However, this incredible genius comes with a tragic trade-off. People with Savant syndrome are usually world-class in their one specific area of expertise, but they often severely lack basic social skills, struggle with language, and sometimes require lifelong care to perform everyday tasks, like tying their shoes or cooking a meal. Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome, superflexibility. If you've ever seen Mr. Fantastic or Elastigirl stretch and bend their bodies in impossible ways, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, specifically the hypermobile type, is the closest real-world equivalent. Ehlers-Danlos is a group of genetic disorders that directly affect the body's connective tissues, primarily the skin, joints, and blood vessel walls. This is caused by a mutation that results in faulty collagen production. Because collagen is the glue that holds the human body together, people with this condition have joints that are remarkably loose and skin that is incredibly elastic. Affected individuals can perform shocking feats of flexibility, bending their fingers completely backward, contorting their spines into impossible shapes, and dislocating and relocating their shoulders or hips on command, without immediate effort. In the past, people with this condition often found work in traveling circuses, as rubber people or contortionists. However, the dark side of this superpower is immense. Because their joints are so unstable, they are prone to agonizing, frequent, and involuntary dislocations. Furthermore, because their connective tissue is so fragile, they often suffer from chronic joint pain, easy bruising, early onset arthritis, and in severe variants of the disease, their internal organs and blood vessels can become so weak that they randomly rupture, making it a highly dangerous condition to live with.